Sinnoh folklore almost took Pokemon in a very different direction, but old Pokemon used to be edgy. I mean, part of the story in Generation 1 is a slain Marowak and its orphan child. So there's that. We have Pokemon Adventures, just straight up killing Pokemon left and right. A shocking case of Poke Love, the Pokemon Coliseum Mighty Enna boyfriend. They slip it in, and of course, who could forget? People in Pokemon used to be married, but we gotta cut that out of the English localization. So Generation 4 was kind of the crossroads where they went, do we go yokai, Japanese folklore, sex, and death, or do we make it a kid-friendly franchise? And they went for the kid-friendly franchise, but the leaks given us insanity right here. So here's a story about a Slakoth. Every day, this girl and her friends were bored. They would catch Slakoth living in the forest, play cruel games with it, killing them, gouging out their eyes, or cut off their ears. That was a pitch for Sinnoh folklore. Or at least some kind of lore establishment about cruelty in the Pokemon world. One day, the woman was walking alone in the forest and saw Slakoth hanging from a tree. She climbed the tree to catch it, but slipped and injured herself. At that moment, a Vigoroth appeared. The Vigoroth had a torn ear. The woman tried to flee, but she couldn't move because she was injured. The Vigoroth with the torn ear attacked her. When it saw her, the woman lost consciousness. When she awoke in an unfamiliar place, she was at a clear lake surrounded by trees where Slakoth and Vigoroth were hanging. All of the Pokemon bore wounds somewhere on their bodies, left by the woman and her companions. Upon closer inspection, she noticed some of the Slakoth were corpses. Fuck, man. They were the very Slakoth that her friends killed and discarded. The Slakoth were throwing those corpses into the lake. Terrified, she tried to run away, but a Slaking appeared, and it was the Slaking that was a Vigoroth. Fear overwhelmed her, and she fainted once more. When the woman regained consciousness, she found herself at the entrance of the forest near her home, surrounded by her friends. They carried her back to her house. Sometime later, she gave birth to a Slakoth. Her friends killed the Slakoth, she went back to the lake, and threw herself in it with her child. I mean, that goes pretty hard. And we have Veilstone's myth that's like in the Pokemon games, which is like the diet version of this, but it's also really interesting. A young man, callow and foolish in innocence, came to own a sword. With it, he smote Pokemon, which gave sustenance with carefree abandon. Those not taken as food, he discarded with no afterthought. So like, yeah, old Sinnoh just killing Pokemon left and right. The following year, no Pokemon appeared. Larders grew bare. The young man seeking missing Pokemon journeyed afar. Long did he search, far and wide, until one he did find. He asked, "Why do you hide?" To which the Pokemon replied, "If you bear your sword to bring harm upon us, with claws and fangs, we will exact a toll. From your kind, we will take our toll. It must be done. Done it must be to guard ourselves, and for it, I apologize." To the skies, the young man shouted his dismay, "And having found the sword, I have lost so much. Gorged with power, I grew blind to Pokemon being alive. I will never fall savage again. This sword I denounce and forsake. I plead forgiveness, for I was but a fool." So saying, the young man hurled the sword into the ground, snapping it. Seeing this, the Pokemon disappeared to a place beyond seeing. Then we have Sinnoh Folk Story 2 and 3, which are about to take on completely different meaning. There lived a Pokemon in the forest. In the forest, the Pokemon shed its hide to sleep as a human. Awakened, the human dons the Pokemon hide to roam villages. And then Classic 3. There once were Pokemon that became very close to humans. There once were humans and Pokemon that ate together at the same table. It was a time where there existed no differences to distinguish the two. So let's talk about the collapse of culture and relationships, a theme for Pokemon folklore. There was a time when the boundary between Pokemon and humans was blurred. In a coastal village, there was a man. One day, as he was walking along the shore, he found a female artillery washed up on the beach. Had relations with the artillery, and threw it back into the sea. The next day, he found the artillery in the same spot again. Once more had relations, and threw it back to the sea. One night, after several days had passed, the man had a dream. In the dream, artillery spoke to him, "I cannot come to you, but I will deliver our child to you. It is our child, yours and mine." Next morning, the man went to the place where he had met the artillery. He found a boy. The man took the boy home and raised him. Time passed, the boy grew into a young man. The father passed away. The young man was lonely. Then there's a part about how he saw a group of people playing with swords in the distance, but it was Sharpedo, and then he found a sword and took it home. The next day, he took the sword and went into the forest. While walking through the forest, he encountered an Ursaring. He tried slashing at the Ursaring's mouth with the sword, and the mouth was easily severed. Next, he stabbed the eyes. They were easily pierced. The young man thrust the sword into the Ursaring's chest. The Ursaring died effortlessly. That day, the young man killed 30 Ursaring, and he carried the sword with him. And then he finds an elderly Ursaring. The Ursaring invites him into his den. People start coming in, but the people have scars similar to the Ursaring. So as you can see, this inspired the published, finalized Sinnoh folklore to where people don the pelts of Pokemon and then can shed it to become people. And then I guess, like, there's some, like, it's some kind of weird hybrid. Like, hybrid people are people and Pokemon, but then there's the people who don't know, and then they kill Pokemon who are people. He hibernated with the Ursaring. When spring arrived, the elderly Ursaring spoke, "Do you want to go home? Then I shall send you home. When you return, a Wailord will soon be found near the village. Go there, we will send a man. You must leave the sword behind and bring a witness. Why did you do such things, cutting faces and slicing off noses?" Elderly Ursaring escorted the young man back to the village. Upon his return, the young man recounted everything that happened to the villagers. The following morning, a young man took some villagers to him and headed to the shore. As they were walking, they found a large Wailord. Nearby was a Teddiursa. When it noticed the young man, the Teddiursa hid in the forest, and a large Ursaring came out of its place. As the Ursaring charged at him, the young man tried to draw his sword that he had hidden, but it got stuck, and he couldn't pull it out. So he rushed at the Ursaring with his bare hands, and then they killed each other. Theme: relationship between humans and Pokemon, human-like ways of thinking. Long ago, the boundary between Pokemon and humans was unclear. This story is about a girl from a village, and then she meets a man, but the man's like, "Hey, you can't look at my face while I'm sleeping," because he's actually a Typhlosion. This is my home, you must be hungry, wait here. He went outside the cave. A red light shone from far away in the mountains. There was a sound of trees swaying. Before long, the man returned, carrying many red berries. "Eat this, let's sleep. Even if you wake up, don't look at my face." So, this is human by day, Typhlosion by night. At some point, things happen. When the snow began to fall, the two of them lived in the depths of the cave, mostly sleeping. There was plenty of food. Occasionally they would wake up, eat, go back to sleep. One day, when she awoke, the girl was holding a child. After several days and nights passed, the Typhlosion said, "Your father is looking for you, but you are my wife, so I can't return you. I will have to fight him." The girl said, "Don't do it. Don't kill my father. If anyone's to be killed, let it be you. Goodbye. We will never meet again." With those words, Typhlosion went outside. After a while, there was a loud noise. Girl looked outside. Father had killed the Typhlosion. She honored the request, built a small hut on the edge of the village for the girl for her child to live in. Spring arrived. Young men of the village often teased and tormented the girl and her child. It became worse over time. One day, they tried to drape a Typhlosion's pelt over them, so also just hunting and skinning Typhlosions and then teasing the half-Typhlosion child. The girl returned home and pleaded with her parents, "Please tell the villagers stop teasing us. If they put that pelt on us, we will surely become Typhlosion. We're already half-Typhlosion as it is." So wearing the pelts of a Pokemon turns you into Pokemon in Sinnoh, and it doesn't seem to be folklore because shenanigans keep happening. The villagers didn't listen. They found it more amusing, draped the Typhlosion pelt over the girl. They howled, loudly vanished into the depths of the forest, never to be seen again. As people came to understand, Typhlosion are half human. Nobody's Fave is safe from Game Freak devs, so we have a Rapidash story. There's also a beautiful furred Ursaring story, and the Octillery story, but with Lapras. Reminder, this has always been Lapras's art. I don't think Junichi Masuda's beating the allegations anymore. On top of that, we have the lore of the Pokemon universe, which people are still trying to unravel. This is getting translated and has all kinds of crazy implications. Pseudo-legendary is kind of being on the line with legendary Pokemon, which makes sense through the stats. We have Gyarados also being involved, other Pokemon, Latios over here since they're not a trio. Interesting. And then the origin of the Pokemon universe, which is like the Arceus Egg story, just more fleshed out. So I guess at some point you gotta condense it. In the beginning, there was a swell of chaos, everything slowly mixing together, everything was unclear. One day, a large egg appeared in the center. The egg continued to sway. When the swell stopped, the egg spilled out and broke. The absolute god Arceus was born. The scattered pieces of the shell transformed into giants and attacked the newly born Arceus one after another. So does that mean the shell fragments are unknown? And has that already kind of been implied somewhere, I feel? However, Arceus continued to grow rapidly and continued to defeat... No, those are the giants, though, so I don't even know. A fierce battle ensued. Finally, all the giants were defeated. Wounded, Arceus decided to create an alter ego. The left and right sides became the alter egos. Bodies of the giants had them defeated, poured his own blood onto them. When the alter ego, modeled after his left side, was born, filled with light. So Palkia, the god of light, and then the right side became Dialga, the god of time. And then we have more Arceus humanity lore. Where did all of this go? It kind of became the movie, I guess. And then we have the new translation of this. There was never a strong effort, even as Pokemon became like popular and established and like, yo, this ain't going. Does this also explain why Diamond and Pearl had so many delays for so many years? Like, there was a lot of weird development stuff that happened with that game. But why, instead of actually just like consolidating the Pokemon lore, they went, nah, multiple timelines and universes, and then we just make, like, the sad thing, not even the sad thing, like, the weird thing is, they had all this, and they threw it all away for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Maybe that's why Pokemon went in, like, the complete opposite direction. Someone from, like, the Pokemon Company International, like, the westernization of this, saw this and went, bros, you do not understand what happens if you drop this. You will become more obscure than Digimon if this is allowed to happen. And then Generation 5 with like the babied child, fragile Western development happen. And then just kind of carried into Pokemon Legends Arceus. And now Pokemon is way too dumbed down and babied when we had like edgy, cool Pokemon that was about to go way off the rails. But even then, like, they didn't lock in to Generation 4 lore. They didn't lock into the creation of the Pokemon universe or anything like that. And I'm really wondering how much of that happened because of the West. Or again, like the advisors and consultants for like the rest of the Pokemon Company globally were just like, this isn't gonna fly. You don't understand the Christians not liking anything else calling themselves God, because we didn't really have Arceus's creation being like hard set as like, yeah, it's actually the god of the Pokemon world. You can't do that. And then all got scrapped, and then we got the complete dog shit of Pokemon Black and White. And there's also things in these leaks about internal memos like, hey, we have to change Pokemon X and Y because they really didn't like all new Pokemon and not being able to play with old Pokemon. So the revamp of Pokemon didn't work, and we need to respect the older audience, but keep out the sex, okay? Bro, now that this is out, also, like, what does Game Freak do now? I don't know. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.